call the meeting to order. The Oxford Downtown Development Authority, July 15th. Please rise and pay respect to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Roll call. Captain, you need that, please?
Yes, I'll do it. Piper.
Here.
Colvin, here. Knaus. Is she coming? No? Absent.
Gone, yep.
Cook, absent. Schultz.
Here.
Charles.
Here.
Powers.
Here.
Carey.
Here.
Clark.
Here. Thank you. Public comment on non-agenda items. Any public comment? Seeing none, moving right along. Consent agenda, number one, approval of the proposed agenda. I'd like to amend the agenda under new business, and it would be 9C.
Where's 9B? Oh, I see it.
On the second
Okay, I
page.
see it. Okay.
And this would be for a resignation letter.
9ABC.
And that would be I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Moved by Schultz, seconded by Charles. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same thing.
Um,
Approval of the June 24th meeting minutes, police report, and code enforcement report.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 2024, the police report, and the code enforcement report as filed.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Powers, seconded by Carey, to approve the June 24th, June 2024 meeting minutes, police report, and a code enforcement report. All in favor?
Wait, we have to have a discussion first.
Oh, sorry.
Just
Any
a quick-
discussion?
Quick comment on the, this is trite, but whatever. Trolley is misspelled in the budget, so small, but just to bring it up, so. I don't think we need to make any changes, but just,
Okay.
because we're so good on things, we want to make sure our spelling is right too.
All right, all
Not
in
that I
favor?
read these things, don't get me wrong.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think. Financials? Financial statements, revenue expense reports, and the bills.
Someone will make a motion.
Where's my approval?
A motion to pay the bills in the total of $26,554.64.
I'll second that.
Moved by Carey, supported by Charles. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Clark.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Ian Colvin, yes.
Motion carried. DDA reports, the executive director's report.
No, I meant to put that other committee reports first again. Do you want to go through them and then I'll touch on what hasn't been touched on? That way we don't
Double do it.
double it again.
You can do that.
Okay.
Good idea.
How about the board committee report?
Okay, you want me to read it, Peter, or you want to do
Please,
it?
Rod, if you could.
So we got the village offices here. If you look here, we had Brad, myself, Randy, and Pete Schultz. Leslie Galinas hasn't turned in their application yet, by the way. And I did call her, by the way, to remind her to do that, which she said she will at some point. Has she received it yet, or turned it yet, Kelly?
She hasn't turned it in, but she did receive it a few months back.
So, and then Kelsey was there as well, as it indicates on the form here. So we talked about the bylaws. There was some changes there, there's some ambiguity about who should be on the board, what the criteria are. It's not in this packet, so Kelly, if we could put it in the next packet, the resolution we voted on?
It is under.
Is it? I missed it, I'm
new
sorry.
business. 9A.
Okay, I'm sorry that I totally missed that part. But the idea there is we just want to clean it up a little bit, some of the language. Nothing radical, but just a couple words there to tighten it up a little bit, okay? As you see here, we talked about the interns working on the historic buildings, the markers on the buildings there. Talked about the trolley, the pub crawl. You can see everything there, the quad update, and then the 501. And then we had a discussion too about, sort of things that we want to put on the calendar, so we update the website so that people who use the website know what's going on, so that had to be cleaned up a little bit there, nothing radical. And then we talked about ways that if you go on a new business, just to make sure that we talk about some of the positive things that are happening in the village. A lot of the work that the DPW does that goes unrecognized, and what we should talk about there. And she brought, as it says here, she called to our attention, the DDA board voted at a meeting to authorize the transfer of $10,000 to the village for services provides. So that was one of the things that we talked about. We all agreed that the funding adjustment could have been handled a little bit better as far as the timing with the budget process and that sort of thing like that. So that's it in a summary. I won't read it verbatim, but that's essentially what we talked about, okay?
Very good. Any questions on that? All right, thank you. The promotion committee, or no, I think it's the EV committee.
We did not meet with
Okay. Now the promotional committee.
them. Holly, can you give that report? Since you were at Carmel?
Sure. Do I just go through kind of like just the highlights?
Yeah, highlights.
Okay, there were, I would say, 5 of us there. What did we do? We talked about the current concerts in the park and how we've been getting good feedback from them so far. We talked about the kickoff of the open air market, and that seemed to go pretty well. Had a good turnout. It was nice to see that space being utilized. Let's see, we talked about the executing the cornhole that's coming up. We were gonna maybe as a group try and check out how Wind Down Wednesdays was going. With the rain that we had this week, we postponed it to next week. So we're gonna try and see how that's picking up as far as attention. And the car shows have been going fairly well. They don't like to come in if it's raining, so sometimes it's a lower turnout. And then we are really focusing on the Scarecrow Festival right now because that's gonna come in really quickly. And we're just trying to get like our duties lined up there and discuss how we want to change it this year and go over the ideas and stuff like that. So it was a productive meeting, and I know we're planning on meeting 2 times in August and 2 times in September before the event. So other than that, that's about it.
Any report? Right?
Just what kind of change? I mean, I think the event's been phenomenal, and here again, Kelly's done a great job
Yeah.
since she became executive director. What kind of changes are you guys kicking around?
Well, the pie eating contest, I think last year it didn't go over as well, because it was a little bit later in the day. So we're throwing around ideas of either doing like the bagel bombs on a string or like just
some different
something,
things.
but maybe just a different spin on it, but still having those activities. Potentially having a beer tent this year. That's just in proposal stage, and they're still finding out details on how that might work and look. And then the fun run, and then is it a 3-mile race with a 5K? Is it?
The 5K, yeah.
Yeah. So all of that is still going to run and then the chili cook-off with. That is planned as scheduled too. So they're very minor changes. We do have a lot of vendors that want to come in for the open air market part. So we're trying to figure out where do we put them all, So we're utilizing 2 spaces on different quadrants of the town. So
Yeah, we had an influx of people businesses that want to partner with us this year and bring in activities free of charge to us, but they just want to be a part of it. So for example, the skate rink up in Lapeer wants to bring down all their rentals and do like a mini skating rink. And then the farmer wants to bring back the hayride this year. We have somebody who would like to already come alongside and sponsor the run this year that we got the call from today. So, and we weren't even there yet where we were getting proposals out for sponsorships, but people are coming to us faster than we can keep up with. So it's more so just putting all those pieces together, but really the structure of the day and the timing will pretty much all stay the same. It's just more some different activities just to change it up, but it's on a Lions bye week, so I'm sure it'll be successful.
I'd like to offer Homegrown's help on the beer tent as far as, what's involved with licensing and all that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, great.
Marie, I was gonna come to you first. We actually had a business owner in the downtown come and pitch that out to us, that he wanted to do that.
Okay.
That didn't come from us. I didn't really understand fully, what would go into that, but I did tell him that if you are gonna run with this idea, we need to talk to council, and then I would like to involve all the local breweries to be the ones to provide everything. So, but I had yet to hear back from him. That wasn't something that we were gonna try to take on ourselves.
Was that a restaurant owner by chance?
It was
or-
not, it was
Okay.
actually Swiss Insurance,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd rather involve the local breweries rather than bringing in a big distributor.
1,000%. And I
And
told
we
him that
discussed
first
that
and
then
foremost.
at the
yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
Okay, great.
Grace?
So a bit of a transition from Scarecrow Fest, but the open air market that happened last week was one fantastic.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed seeing some of the local businesses doing tents on the sidewalk. This was something the EV committee had actually talked about a while ago. Last year, we noticed not only that kind of activity from our small businesses, but also folks in the residential area having lemonade stands or that pop-up coffee stand. I think something that the EV committee and the promo committee can coordinate on moving forward is just communicating with our small businesses to make sure that one, they have any of the proper permitting they might need to do like a sidewalk sale. I know sometimes that is something that is a requirement. I'm not sure what the village's requirements are for that. And then also talking to them about the sizing of their tents on the sidewalk. So last week in particular, very happy to see our small business out there on the sidewalk, but their tent was so large that you couldn't really get around it on the sidewalk. You had to go out into the street. So I think if we just have a nice casual conversation with them about how
Sure.
the sizing of the tent can maybe be more uniform, and maybe we can get some more of our small businesses to come out and participate on the market days.
Great.
Any other?
Yeah, this is one final thing to compliment Kimberly Smith here too on that Washington Square. That's been a phenomenal success. That's been a great success, and I know you put a lot of work into it.
Thank you. I'm really stepping into my market master. It's a team effort, but thank you.
No, I know it's a team effort, but I hear the things, I see the stuff, and it's really been phenomenal. It's really been a huge improvement. Those of us on the DDA board for years, we recognize the difference in the concerts in the park have been so much better than years ago. The Washington Square has been a phenomenal success. I hear it everywhere, and from people outside of Oxford, by the way. They drive through, stop in, stuff like that. So you guys, nice job.
Kim?
One thing, just really quickly, just to follow up on Holly, one of the things I know we've talked about before is kind of operationalizing our committees a little bit more. So one of the things we talked about for Scarecrow Fest is, Holly, I don't know if you remember nominating yourself or being nominated, but she is going to be our volunteer coordinator for the event, and she's going to allow the volunteers to check in and check out at her business. And so then that is like a one meeting point. I think it's going to organize that process a lot better, and it's going to help from an efficiency and effectiveness standpoint for our volunteers. So I think it'll help continue to start building that piece of what we've been trying to work on for the last couple of years of getting our volunteer program a little bit more mature. And did we mention we loved you for that? Thank you for volunteering very much.
Sure.
Good idea.
It was
Anybody else?
Told.
All right.
Said you were voluntold.
The design committee.
I was not there, so Kelly can
That's right, sorry, okay, we missed you. So design committee, we didn't have any types of grants this month. We are working with a couple of small business owners through their grants currently. We received some of the plantings for the big planter boxes that are in Washington Square now. So we will have those out hopefully by next week. And then those are movable, so we can block off some of the space. Right now, we have them up against the wall in Washington Square. But I love that depending on which event it is, they can move to block off something, they can move to block off the front 24. And in the meantime, they're a great sound barrier against that red wall, which they're up against right now. We did talk about different ARPA funding ideas and threw some things out there, but unfortunately, until we know from the county if ARPA funding is coming through, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now, but we do have until 2026 to use it if we do get the funds. So we feel like we have time, and again, this is something that once we figure out, okay, this is where the funds can be used, then we'll go to village council, get approvals there before we start to make decisions as a board. We did talk through some of our events and talked about placemaking, anything additional for those spaces. And it was voted on that Scott Cree stay the chair of that committee. Came up on his year, so he just wanted to make sure and everybody was unanimous that of course we want you to be the chair. Nobody else wants to take these notes. So, but great meeting. We had it at CFE. It's nice to get out in the community and visit some of the different coffee houses and locations as we're holding these meetings. And I know that they appreciate it too, seeing all of us. So it's really good. We got to see their new sign that we just granted them, which was really neat too.
One question on that I had from the last meeting. We talked about the painting the square, Washington Square and stuff like that. And then we were looking for a few different ideas for as far as people to do it and everything. Has anything come forward?
Yeah, Marie had talked to one artist. It sounded like he passed us on to somebody else, but it's not from the community. So we were a little hesitant to go with somebody who was not from the Oxford community. So that's all that we received back for now.
I have another name for you when you want. Oh, somebody from Orion.
I call it Orion Rec Center, that's where I started.
Well, let's see if it's the same name.
Might be.
Okay, very good. Back to the executive director's report.
Perfect. Now I only have a few things to tell you. So we had a lot of different meetings and focuses this month, but we worked a lot with our smaller business. We felt like there was a lot of different needs for small businesses this month that were either looking to expand their locations, looking for new space, wanting to sign up for the e-commerce site or the gift card program. And we just made all of those introductions. We had wonderful meetings this month, a lot of sponsorship opportunities too, not only from businesses in the district, but businesses that are within Oxford that really want to be a part of what we're doing here. And we found that, instead of we always open it up to our downtown businesses first, but if we can't fill those sponsorships, it is nice to be able to involve companies that are outside of our downtown and not always put so much pressure on the downtown businesses that they need to come up with a sponsorship. So we're seeing value in that and had some of those meetings this month. We attended the Oxford Community Leaders Meeting with the new superintendent. I meet with her on Monday to discuss downtown and the school system further. We continue management of the trolley, including maintenance. It went in today to get those parts that we have long waited for. And we're excited for those parts then to get us through. Diesel Tech really feels like these parts will take care of all the problems that we've been facing with NODA. And we've really started to, I feel, better communication with NODA and just open up those lines of communication so we're not running into the same problems that we were having a few months prior that we talked about. We collaborated with POW Strategies, who's running our strategic planning next Monday. And then we worked with the MEDC. We're trying to figure out some of these development projects that are coming into downtown Oxford, how we can get them funding and if funding is available for the downtown projects. I was able to deliver a speech at GROW, which is a new networking group here.
And we collaborated a lot with the county on different grants and resources for small businesses that they were looking for this month. So besides for that, intern projects and just event management kept us pretty busy.
Very good. Any questions?
Kind of related, Mr. Medors here, what's the status of the development going in on the west side M24, that right by the car wash and Dr. Steep's?
Maybe,
That's in the village, that's in the DDA district, isn't it?
yes.
So that's what,
So,
32
yeah,
homes?
Additional, oh, I think I'm going out front.
Well, there's that area back there, those all
Right,
in
okay.
the,
So they came,
Step to the board, please.
just make sure you can hear. They applied for conditional rezoning application to the planning commission. Planning commission recommended that. I liked what the idea was and recommended approval to village council. Village council took it up last week and granted to the agreement that was presented. They approved to enter into. And so the conditional rezoning agreement is going to be signed here as soon as we get the parties together. The next step would be then for them to go back to the planning commission for site plan, normal site plan approval at that point, but just within the parameters of the agreement.
and what would it be then? What, 32 individual homes is my understanding?
No, it is multifamily, it's multifamily zoning to some degree where it's townhomes, single-family townhomes, condos that are connected. But because they're connected, it had to have this conditional rezoning. They weren't separate, and they're gonna be on one big lot like any other condo development, right? Individual condo will be its own unit and its own parcel to be sold. I know how that goes as well. But because there'll be one big common area, like any other condo development, some of you would see like the bottom of the hill here with the Village Ridge condos, or condo lane, and Birdie Woods Court. It'd be a condo setup. Now, there'll be 6 buildings that have 4 units in them. And then there's a couple 4-unit buildings that are actually connected just in order to minimize the space between them. So those will actually be 8 units connected. I think there's 2 of those. So all total 32 condos. But they're 2-story townhomes.
Two-story. Pete?
Yes,
I guess. So that is within the DDA district, the entire
Yes.
complex?
Yes.
And how many residents are you anticipating?
Well, it's 32 units, so who knows?
So at least 32 people.
32 individual condos.
It gets down to, we talk every year about how many people could be on the board and finding
Right.
residents and all that kind of stuff
Right.
like that.
I think you've already established that you have the 100 plus, so you have a resident, and you actually have 2, you're lucky enough at the moment. So yeah, I don't ever see you dipping below that and not needing a resident going forward.
But it doesn't change with the amount of people. So if they move in,
Yeah, it's not
it doesn't
prorated.
say that we have to then have 2 residents on our board. It stays at the 1.
No, I wasn't going there. I just was, to Joe's point, the bank of people that we could draw from is going to increase, as well as the tax revenue.
Probably will be second planning commission in August, which I believe is the 20th, will probably be the earliest that they're prepared with their designs and engineering stuff to go to planning commission for site plan.
Has there been discussion about the traffic coming and going out of M24?
Plenty.
And duh, okay.
MDOT approved that easement that Dr. Steve bought, that he wanted additional parking. So when it was being sold off from Oxford Air back to Mr. Green, he was approached by Dr. Steve, hey, he wanted to buy some for additional parking. Well, he obviously knew he couldn't landlock the rear parcel, so the grand bargain was, working with us and Dr. Steve and the seller, Mr. Green, is that you needed to provide an easement here. You could get some parking out of the deal, but he also needed to provide an easement not only for ingress, egress traffic, but for utilities as well. Electrical, sewer, water, whatever, those are all documented as easements as part of that as well. That actual, all that easement, that paved parking area, the curb and paved parking area is wholly owned by Dr. Steve. But part of the deal for him to obtain that and to allow for some additional parking for his own use was the grand bargain of ingress, egress to the back as well as to the commercial lot directly south, which is working its way towards the Big Coffee. Just earlier today, our planner, Mario from McKenna, and I were emailing back and forth about the circulation plan that they had resubmitted.
Has there been any discussion about a traffic light?
No,
Should there be?
I think it'd be fruitful, or fruitless. It was MDOT. I really, they approved it, that they knew, and they allowed for, that they reviewed it and planned for it and allowed that curb cut and to permit that driveway back in 2020, I think it was. It was around the time we were doing the 24 project, that was already in, so it might have been 19 even. Full well knowing what those commercial ties to the south, parking that Dr. Steep was looking for and potential development at the rear site. So MDOT approved that curb cut that as was presented to them, so.
I mean, that relates beyond our auspices here as a DDA board. It just
Especially
strikes me
not-
that it's so dangerous going down there without more traffic lights, that's all, so
Yeah.
whatever.
MDOT wants to move traffic.
MDOT controls traffic. I know what we did there, that 24 project, you know, it's all based on vehicle count or vehicle numbers. And MDOT felt that even at Stanton, Denison, and Washington Street, there was not enough of the cross-traffic vehicle count to warrant the light. So there's no way in heck that they would even look at that one down there, because technically you're not, there's no other streets going
You
down
guys don't
there.
get it.
There's nothing, so.
You can make changes. You just need some leadership.
Okay. Moving along. Unfinished old business, then strategic planning and training.
So just wanted to mention and remind everybody that it has changed to July 22nd, which is a week from today, 5 to 8 at Homegrown. Marie and I will figure out food. And I sent a survey when we first announced it. If you have not taken that, please take it. She has only had 5 responses from everyone, and we need the board, the committee, and everyone to do that. So I will resend the link when I leave here tonight so that you have it fresh in your inbox.
Any other questions on that? The 8B, the 501c3 Board of Directors discussion.
Yes, so I'm gonna have Kimberly come up to the mic as well, because she's been working with the attorney on that portion. You will see in your packet resumes for candidates that we've discussed in board committee. These were candidates that actually came to us when our board applications were open, and we really liked them, and we would love to have all of them a part of it. So we did go back to them and ask them if they would be interested in the 501 board, and then at that time, they sent us their resumes and said, yes, they would. They all plan on being at the strategic planning meeting as well. We are waiting to appoint these people for our next step in our process for the attorney, but Village Council President Kelsey Cook brought to my attention that she had quite a few questions in this last week, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody is comfortable. We don't need to appoint people tonight if we're not, because we still do need to find 2 other candidates. I also wanted to talk through, I had a conversation with Christy Trevorrow from Rochester about their nonprofit and how they work it, and really use some of the questions that Kelsey asked me to go to her. So I also wanted to just have a discussion about that. And then Kimberly can kind of give you an update on what she's done with the attorney so far, and then what we're waiting on.
Sure. So unfortunately, we have not made any progress since our last conversation, because the attorney cannot move forward in their process until we have 3 names as a, at minimum, as a board of director to move forward with filing for our paperwork. So there has been, they keep reaching out to me asking when we're going to be ready, and I keep letting them know that we're still in discussions. So from a process standpoint, we are at a standstill and cannot move forward until we choose at least 3 individuals. Now, we do have the option to choose 3 now and then add more later, if that's something that we want to do now. But we do need to have an odd number for voting purposes.
But we have 2 applicants.
We have 3 in the packet.
Oh, 3, I'm sorry, so we have 3 applicants.
I did want to run this by you. So within the 501c3 at downtown Rochester, it is included in their current finances that are managed by the city and are included in the city audit. The nonprofit arm, as long as it stays below that $50,000 annually, it doesn't rise to the level of an individual audit. So that's what they have been doing. Their nonprofit was established in 2013, and they fill out a form, which is a 999 e-postcard for annual tax filing. They do manage it with their staff. So Christy oversees the actual nonprofit, and she lists actually her current board members as the board for the nonprofit and does not have a separate board.
currently. So that's the way they run theirs. All the board members are covered under the insurance that runs through the DDA and the village. And all the work is done on behalf of the DDA director. So she said it's really not a lot of extra work on their part. If it did ever make it above and beyond that $50,000 threshold, I think that we could explore that conversation. I know Ashley Ross is here tonight. She's one of the people that I am very passionate about having on the 501 board. And just with her experience level of nonprofits, I think she would be amazing. But I am also okay to table this if not everybody is comfortable moving forward at this point in time.
All right, I'm going to open up to questions of the board members, but please ask some questions or input so we can all work our way through this. So please go ahead and start.
I would recommend, just based on my professional experience and having done surveys of corporate entities that have philanthropic arms and government entities that also do, it is a lot cleaner if you do have a separate board just for both entities. You don't run into a situation of was it a conflict of interest, that the same board make a decision that affects both entities. So I would highly recommend, even, not even considering these candidates that are here now, but having a separate board for the 501, even though it would be easier for this board to also be that board.
Anybody else?
Is it recommended that somebody from the actual DDA board also sit on this board?
Yes.
So that would be a recommendation, and we don't have a volunteer from,
That was originally going to be me.
yes, and it would have been great.
Unfortunately, had some family things come up recently, and so I'm stepping back, but I do think that there should be a liaison between this board and that board. That is fairly common, just to make sure that things are ticking in time between the two organizations, and especially since they should have a shared mission, vision, values, that you are staying aligned to your mission and purpose as well. So.
And then
Go ahead, Rod.
who's going to be doing the accounting?
That would be through the audit. Yep, so the accounting would be a separate number that is within the system currently. That's the way that Christy is doing it as well. It would all fall under that number that we're already set up for in the system. I haven't talked to Mr. Medora about this, but if we needed to pay additional into our audit that we already currently get, just because this adds on another layer, I think that, that would be fine. I don't foresee this being anything above and beyond until we go above that $50,000 threshold. Right now, I don't feel like the finances is anything out of our realm and our scope of every day that we handle.
So you're saying you would do it then, is what the answer is?
Yeah, when I say me, I mean Kimberly. No, yes, Kimberly and I would handle that.
Well, you said Joe Medora and whatnot, so who's going to be doing the accounting was my
No.
question.
So it would be us, but currently, that a big part of our day-to-day finances runs through the village, right? Because the numbers and the systems are going in front of Kim in the office, and then Kim is going to Terry, and then Joe is signing our checks. So we would need to work hand in hand, just like the way we do every single day with the village, to have this work.
So the answer is the village and whoever the person who takes over for Terry. That's what we're
Yeah.
looking at? Is that correct, Mr. Medora? What's your understanding? And we were saying we would be prepared to reimburse the village for the extra work?
Yeah, I think the first couple of years, it would be very minimal, but I think that with our budgeting process, I feel like we should absolutely do that.
Anybody else? Pat? Yes.
So my only question for this, as I was thinking about it, is you have two boards, absolutely, I agree with everything that's been said. I'm just curious how other municipalities do it. If the work is coming onto you two, but now you have two boards that you report to, obviously this arm would be smaller, but how do we differentiate like when our priorities don't necessarily align? Is that outlined in our bylaws? Is there a way to?
Yeah, great question. I did ask Christy about this, but I also talked with Nick and Holly as well. So the one thing is that they look at that nonprofit board as just the funding that they do at the end of the year. So it's a funding campaign to support the downtown. So they're under Downtown Rochester is what the name of their nonprofit is. So their mission is to get in funds to support the downtown. They're all really under the same mission and vision, like Grace kind of said, but it's not necessarily that board is setting up different strategies. That strategy is still falling under this DDA board, but they're an arm that kind of manages that financial portion of it. So I would still foresee this board having all of the strategy and everything falling under here, but then that board of directors really understanding what the finances are. And I think that's why we kind of looked into people who have financial background or nonprofit background, because I don't feel like this is just anybody can sit on this board. I think it's really important to make sure that we're buttoned up. And I know a financial background is something that you guys really wanted to see when we talked about it last.
Great.
Just to respond a little bit more to your question, that should all be written into the charter for the 501s. And very often in this sort of situation where it's either a municipality in a 501 or like a corporate entity in a 501, that philanthropic entity is written as a complement to its parent organization. So everything it does has to still adhere to the parent organization, which in this case would be the DDA in the village.
Yeah.
So it would kind of be a subsidiary of the village and the DDA. So it shouldn't ever be in conflict other than like them having different reporting requirements.
Rod?
So the purpose of the discussion is a discussion, or are we looking to vote on something?
I would say it's a combination. I mean, right now, we're all getting input or getting questions answered, so we're all comfortable with what's going on or trying to explain or understand how it's all going to function. But I think at the same time, we're close enough that we have 3 applications, and if everybody feels comfortable, I think we can act on that also. Great.
Yeah, I had a related question. I was wondering about the timing of the process, whether we felt that we've exhausted all possible candidates and we might as well move forward with a decision, or whether we're still in that gathering stage of trying to find other candidates.
That's a great question. So I know that Joseph did have it in the Oxford Leader and that we talked about the nonprofit. We haven't put it necessarily on a social media platform, but I think it's because we really felt strongly about these candidates that we interviewed for the board positions. And then we did think we would be full with Grace and then one more. But I mean, I feel very comfortable with these candidates here after speaking with them and letting them know kind of what we were looking for. I don't necessarily want the board to be very large after talking with Grace. She made a good point that we want to start smaller and not have too many cooks in the kitchen and really start to understand the process and what this looks like before, you know, you'd have a board of 9. And Grace, maybe you can speak a little more to that, just keeping a board smaller.
Yeah, my personal experience with getting a nonprofit like this off the ground, you want a kind of highly dedicated group that's going to put in a bit more than just showing up to meetings when you're first getting started. And that's part of the reason why we were really thinking about the sets of skills and expertise that each person would bring to the board, and thinking about that as like, if you're going to have someone in mind for a treasurer position, they should have a strong financial background. Or if you're going to have someone in the president position, they should have a strong nonprofit background so that they know other people in that space and that they can, you know, activate that network. And again, someone for a fundraising position would be something. But especially in the first few years of getting a nonprofit off the ground, you can't just show up to meetings. It's a lot of work, since like the people that we are considering for these positions need to be willing to put in, I think, the extra time that it will take to help build the capacity and really support Kim and Kimberly as they're getting that off the ground.
So Pete,
I'm sorry, Kim?
Right.
We knew. The K is
so
And I think there was some.
Pete, what we're saying is then what we're looking at these potential 3 people, the small things. So then Kelly, you said we are excited about these people. Who's the other person? Who are the other people?
Yep, so Kimberly and I have both gone through these candidates. One actually,
But the answer is you and Kimberly.
Yeah, but
Is the
Kelsey
we.
actually interviewed one of these for Village Council. I know that's in our packet. And then obviously Ashley, we know her from being on both the DDA board and Village Council.
Okay, but you said we. That's why I was wondering who the we is. So it's you
No,
and
you're
Kimberly.
excited too, Rob, it's okay.
I get it. Well, whatever. But it's really Kelly then, really. that
Yeah, the
okay?
other option would be to wait until after strategic planning, if that would make everybody more comfortable. Meet them, get to know them, have them in strategic planning, see how they operate, and then at the next board meeting, you guys can make the decision then.
My gut reaction is it's not really, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with these three people. Look at their background. They look like they're qualified, at least on the
Paper.
paper. You're right, thank you. But it seems the process hasn't really been finalized yet. And I like the concept, but it just seemed like some of the steps that, like you're talking about, Grace, that just needs to be refined a little bit, maybe like a simple flow chart and things like that, like we're talking relationship between this board and that board, those kind of things like that.
And I think that all starts to happen once we have the names, because I know the attorney is drafting some bylaws and some organizational statements, but again, we can't move forward in that process until we have some names.
Murray?
Are the candidates scheduled to speak at the strategic planning meeting? Or, I mean, is there any formalized agenda item for them to
So I know
be able
that
to meet us?
We've had some discussion, and I think this is part of what's delaying the process, is there was some conversation around, do we nominate people or do we accept applications? And so I think the decision was made that we do not require an application process. We are able to nominate them. And so looking at individuals that have expressed interest in participating more in the board, within the DDA, within the community, these are the names that we came up with that, to Grace's point, hit some of the pieces that we're looking at. So, I mean, in theory, yeah, we could put something on our Facebook page and say, hey, who's interested? But are we going to really get more qualified candidates for what we're looking for? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's not at all what I'm
And they're
recommending.
they're not on the agenda necessarily to speak at strategic planning. That's not to say that they can't. That's kind of an open forum where we're all just in conversation and brainstorming. But, so I would hope that they would be speaking up and it would be individuals to, you know, want to participate. But if we wanted to add them to an agenda per se and have them speak and introduce themselves, we absolutely can.
Yeah, I was just trying to address the option to have them, us not decide anything today, but rather wait until
For sure.
the other meeting. But
I think that there's just maybe the question of, is that the right place for them to speak for that? I mean, if we're trying to strategize from a board
Probably
standpoint,
not,
you know,
yeah.
do we want to have them come to another board meeting and introduce themselves, or have some sort of outside meeting where we're having like a meet and greet / interview type of experience? We could do that. I think it just depends on, as a board, how involved you want to be in selecting these individuals, how much, you know, face time do you want to have with them, or do you feel comfortable with looking at their resume and hearing feedback from Kelly or whomever else has met them?
Joe?
To your point, Marie, though, I think you had a good point that strategic planning shouldn't include at least the discussion of the 501c3 and how that works in your plan going forward. Maybe not individuals and then how those individuals plug into the 501c3,
Yeah.
but how does the 501c plug into your strategic plan?
The 501 is on the agenda as
Yeah.
a whole.
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah, I don't think that's the proper forum for basically a job interview.
Right.
You know, perhaps
So
or
I just think there's
person chats that side, who knows?
The only thing I would be hesitant is if you decide to not move forward with them and then they've been part of our strategic planning process. I mean, is that something we want them to be part of if we're not sure that they're the right person for our 501?
Grace?
Is that
Grace?
something that we could have a closed session on to meet them and
I
interview them
can't
as
think of
candidates?
I can't think of anything that fits an open meeting set for that.
Mhm.
Well, personally, I'm, like I said a minute ago, I'm perfectly fine with these candidates on their paper profile. I just would like to have some clarity on the process. That's really the issue, because people come and go. But,
When you say process, what do you mean?
well,
their
like some of the
term?
things like we're talking about relationship between different boards, you know, those are more fundamental
Okay.
than 3 people or 4 people. That's more fundamental.
Would that be addressed through like creating bylaws for this 501?
Creating bylaws and again, you know, delineating where responsibilities are, even the question I mentioned about who's taking care of accounting, those kind of things, like, that's something that supersedes these 3 people. That's the first
Sure.
step, not finding 3 people.
And I think the attorney has basically a template, is what I'm guessing, from what they've used for other DDAs. So I imagine I can ask if we can get, you know, the template and see what it looks like, if that would make you feel comfortable.
But
I
I
don't
think
know, I'm
that's,
even comfortable with what's right, you know.
That should be spelled out in the bylaws, I would think, right?
That's what we're talking about. We don't have any
Right.
guidelines or anything at all right now.
Right.
it's all part of the process. And we'll
Okay.
get there, but if you want that sooner, we can absolutely ask for that.
Joe?
And to your point, Brad, I think like, and what Karen was saying, all that stuff is there, he just wants to complete it, he can't complete it to his name, but it's still already there, so perhaps a draft of that
Yeah.
might answer some of that. How is this outlined, how does this interact with this board versus that board? That might already be all spelled out in that template that he has, so to speak.
Yeah.
He's waiting to finalize it once he's reading it, so he doesn't have to finalize it.
So what's he looking for from us?
You can already see his work product right now and
Three
say,
names.
like you said, maybe a draft of that template, what it looks like. It might spell out some of those relationships, board tenure, are the appointments, do they have terms? All those questions might already be spelled out, all the documentation that he's preparing. He just can't finalize it.
Can't do
names.
it.
Well, you don't need to finalize.
Until he has
it.
names.
You can perhaps see all of it, except for the 3 blank names.
So we could potentially say pending as opposed to approval, we could say these names potentially, or some word like that.
Whether you had any names you picked out or not yet, you could say, well, show us what it looks like, and that might give you a lot better insight as to the process and the form and function of it. Than what he has prepared.
Ashley?
I will say from my end, being one of the applicants, that would make me feel more comfortable as well. Obviously, I kind of have a general idea of what I'm getting into, but seeing the draft and how, like, the formal what we think and how we're gonna interact would be helpful, and I'm
So
sure
that
for the
quote
other
from
candidates as
Pelosi
well, and they
makes sense.
probably wanna see that
You have
too.
to pass the bill and read the
While
bill.
I know I would be committed, I also think it would be fair for the 3 of us and anybody else, and would also help with the applicant pool in the future too, to say, what am I signing up for?
So I would say on the agenda for the strategic planning would be the entire concept of the 501 so that we're all comfortable with it. And then in the meantime, getting a hold of the attorney and asking for the template. And then we can present that and at the August meeting, be able to have that information and be able to appoint the new members at the August meeting on the agenda.
And do you want them in attendance here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Anybody else have any input or any questions on that?
I agree with that.
Good, Rod?
All set on that part. You have to pass the bill.
Yeah. It's a curtain horse thing, right?
Yeah.
Brings us to 9A, new business bylaw amendment.
So this, well, if you find it here, I skipped over the 9 thing here, but see what it says, proposed amendment to the bylaws of Oxford Downtown Development Authority of Oxford, Michigan. Kelly, do you want to go over that? Or do you want me to do it, or what? It's just a real simple, some changes and things, and as I said earlier, just to clear up some of the words that we talked about. You see here the current bylaw and the proposed bylaw. I'll just say this, I've already read it one time. Are there questions about this? It's basically saying the same thing, but just one of the changes that Kelsey wanted to talk about a couple meetings back was that last sentence there. It says the 9th member is either the village president of the municipality or the president's designee from the village council. So that was a key phrase.
Yeah, when I read this, I read the first one. Township taxpayers contribute to the DDA. So I think that was written so that the township had some say, at least had some representation on this board. The amendment looks like it can just change that at any time, for any reason. And I think that the original intent was to ensure that the township did have representation on this board. And I don't think the amendment covers that.
So it went from required to optional, right, is what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
it's
The way it
still,
reads.
yeah, the way it reads, it went from at least the township could have a say in recommending somebody, and then the way it goes, they can remove the township member for any reason at any time. That's the way this amendment reads to me, anyway.
So when I was going to get into that, I touched base with it partly on my memo, and so I'll get into my other spiel a bit now then. So when the DDAs, you have to look at, there's a hierarchy. You have the state statute which defines DDAs and created them. And we have our ordinance, which is in place that we have to have in place that matches the state statute. And then you have bylaws that go to your kind of smaller day-to-day things. The statute, if you read the statute, it is very clear. And I could even read it right out of the state statute. And the township has no say whatsoever. There was, it was something Joe Frost was here, was, it would be nice to work together and to maybe have a position here. So as far as the process goes, there is no requirement other than the number of the people and things like that. The membership is still in there somewhere. And I'll read it right from him once I locate it. Yeah, there it is. It's not a word where I was going to go. So. Okay, except as provided under section 7, 8, and 9, an authority shall be under supervision and control of the board consisting of the chief executive officer of the municipality and a township that is the township supervisor. Board should consist of the chief executive officer of the municipality and not less than 8 or more than 12 members as determined by the governing body of the municipality. Members shall be appointed by the chief executive officer of the municipality, subject to approval of the governing body of the municipality. So that's whether it's a township DDA or village or city DDA, doesn't matter. Those are the requirements. The other requirement that comes into play with any DDA is if you have 100 or more residents within the DDA, there's that. And it talks about that no less than a majority of the board members shall be persons having an interest in the property located in the downtown district, or officers, members, trustees, principals, or employees of a legal entity having an interest in the property located in the downtown district. So there's the other caveat, right? You have to have, we have a 9-member board. And that 9-member board was chosen by Oxford Village ordinance. And so if you change anything, when you come to changing the bylaws, you can change the bylaws. The statute in here does say those bylaws need to be approved by the council. And if it's minor, if it's something that doesn't affect the ordinance or the statute, then that's simply done. If it's something that affects, if you're going to change the number of members, then that would change our ordinance, which then it's in the ordinance adoption and approval process, which requires 2 readings and a public hearing and things like that. And then that would change the ordinance. But then the ordinance then has to fit in the public to the state statute. So that's kind of how that flows.
And I'm not saying that the township would be the controlling entity. I'm just saying it seems to me when this bylaw was written, this board decided the township should have a representative here.
No, this board didn't. It was
the board at the time.
Council. No, village council decided.
Well, the village council.
Joe Frost was the village president, and they sent a DDA. And they said, well, there was some thoughts, why not have a township member? And they're like, well, why not?
So you're saying we don't approve the bylaws?
The ordinance.
Yes,
They were reading the ordinance.
I'm not talking about the ordinance, I'm talking about this bylaw.
But again, those bylaws then have to comport with the ordinance.
But this, you're saying this
As far as
doesn't comport?
Membership makeup, was done by ordinance.
And the membership makeup says that the bylaws cannot say we want a representative from the township.
No, the bylaws can say that, yes.
So I guess that's my point, is this bylaw.
That's why there's a may in there, though. That's why there's a may, not a shall or is entitled to, or things like that. There may be the board, township board may recommend somebody. Rather than village council members choosing somebody, why not let the township board recommend somebody, and then that person could be up for consideration. I think is why that was put in.
Just seems to me, I mean, the township taxpayers do contribute. I think it's like $290,000 a year. That's a significant amount of money.
Well, yeah, I think the township operating is about 35, and you have the police, or I'm sorry, the fire.
But the township contributes to the fire.
Absolutely, just like the library does.
Yes.
The largest contributor, I think, is Oakland County, followed by the village, and then perhaps the township for its various breakdowns. I'm sure it had that breakdown in 5176, I think she filed with the state of Michigan. Huron Clinton Metropolitan Authority contributes.
Yep.
So, right, so if you look at all those entities, yeah, they do make up that. But to your point, there's an overlap here, a direct overlap here as well, right? Oakland County, township, and village that all the residents are, especially those being captured, are paying into. So that was put in a few years ago. I think it was a 2018 amendment. I don't think it was a 22 amendment. That said, you wrote it into the bylaws just to make it where the township board can make a recommendation. That way it would make it a bit easier, I think, on the president to say, well, who would you guys like to see on it? And then that would be brought forth rather than just picking an off-the-person resident member, perhaps. So when you come to changing the bylaws, you just got to think about, and if they also may change the ordinance, then that would be another process that the council has to take up to amend the ordinance. And then we have to make sure our ordinance conforms with the state statute.
So in essence, when the DDA makes a change to a bylaw, it's more of a recommendation.
Yes.
There's no power to it other than, hey, please think about this.
Right, and again, you know, it has to be adopted or approved by the council. I can't remember how they worded it here, but it's something like that. In the state statute, it speaks specifically to that.
Or does that answer your question?
It answers my question, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'll get into some of the other issues later, but I know when you were talking about that specifically, I thought I want to clarify that.
Okay.
Well, Joe, before you get comfortable sitting down, as far as right now, should we, going on what you just said about this basically would be a recommendation of council, should we then
Yeah.
vote or not vote on whether we accept these new bylaws?
Well, you can make a recommendation, say, you know, we as the DDA board recommend council make these changes. You vote on that, yes or no, as a board, whether you want to make those changes, and then recommend those changes. And then, if it doesn't entail any change to the ordinance, then that's relatively simple. So it says here out of the state statute, the business which the board may perform shall be conducted at a public meeting, the Open Meetings Act, which talks about one of the other stuff, public notice made in time. The board shall adopt rules consistent with the Open Meetings Act, governing its procedure and the holdings of regular meetings subject to the approval of the governing body. So you can adopt your rules, but they just then have to be confirmed and adopted.
See, my takeaway on reading this on the current bylaw is the word may in there on the, if you look at the second line toward the end. It's almost like we're repeating ourselves with different words. It says a charter township Oxford may recommend one member. They may not.
Yeah, they may
Right.
not.
Right. And then going back to the change, it says include a member from the township board recommended. So it's almost like the same thing with different sentence structure.
I think that the difference between those two sentences is who has the final authority over actually recommending a member to the board. So in the first one, it says just the sentence by itself, the Charter Township of Oxford may recommend one member from the township board, meaning that the Charter Township of Oxford would have the authority at their sole discretion to choose a member of this board. And I think the second reading is that the township board can recommend a member for the village to approve.
Exactly.
And that's what it comes down to, is that the village is the final actual authority over the DDA because we are an entity of the village and we are not an entity of the township. So it's not saying in any way that the township cannot recommend a member, but who has the final authority over actually approving that member, that reads differently in both of those sentences to me.
Exactly. You're right.
So again, and then A, the statute, and then even above that, it's a state ordinance that we just have to make sure it's incorporated.
So I move that the proposed bylaw, Article 3, Section 1, the DDA board consists of 9 members. 8 members are appointed by the municipality, which may at its discretion include a member from the township board recommended by the Charter Township of Oxford. The 9th member is either the village president of the municipality or the president's designee from the village council. So that's...
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Charles, second by Gary. Any other further discussion on it? Everybody clear? Call for a roll call on it, please.
Clark. Carey.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
And Colvin, yes.
Thank you. Motion passed.
So much fun as it looks.
Oh, I guess.
And now we will have B, state statute.
I was wondering, I didn't see a B, but I'm not.
It's the top.
It's a
Yeah,
top
it's
Yeah,
all
it's like a
the
page.
top of the
Yeah, well, I think I got it.
Yeah, I go through this stuff ahead of time and I still miss stuff. I went through it and I came over, I was like, I missed stuff.
So I did C. All right. So, and I didn't email Kelly the ordinance when I sent her this memo, when I was gonna follow up later. Well, it's too large to email, because it's 19. So I sent everyone a link late today. That's on our website. You can link right to it and see and read the state statute rather than trying to go out and find it on the state of Michigan, whatever. All that stuff. And our ordinance, all of our ordinances are linked to, like Muni Code, which is now called Civic Plus, from our website. And you can look it up under chapter 22 is DDA, or you can search for downtown on our online ordinance. And you can find the ordinance related to the DDAs and stuff. So, and so I wanted to clarify, because we've had a couple members have been here for a year or less maybe. We have a brand new member. And then some of us old dogs who get in our grooves and forget that some of these things change over time. So that's why I wanted to touch base, because every now and then I'll read and I'll hear about, I'll look at some minutes and like, well, there's confusion about the appointment process. And like, well, there shouldn't be, because the state statute is real clear. It consists of the chief executive officers and no fewer than 8, no more than 12. So you either have a minimum of 9 or a maximum of 13 members. And then that is determined by the governing body, whether it's a township, city, or village, doesn't matter. And then it talks about how the recommendations are made. A lot of times people will think, oh, the township supervisor, they appoint people to the planning commission, or they appoint people to this. Well, they don't. They make recommendations. If those recommendations are approved by the remaining of the board, in this case the council, then that person gets on. Now, they are the gatekeeper. Nobody gets approved or recommended for approval to the DDA or planning commission or things like that without the township supervisor or the mayor or the council president making that recommendation. But it's the other governing rest of that board and that approves or does not approve. You could recommend somebody and the rest of the board says, no, thank you. That person's not getting that. So the process is fairly clear as far as the statute goes, how that works. And again, when I came up about how that was brought up, I think it was in 2018, because at one time, we had to go through and we changed our ordinance. We put up to 13 members.
We did.
Because there was an appointment process and they left out somebody from the township, and then somebody wanted to put somebody in the township, and then we didn't want to have an even number, so then they went back up to 13 members, and we had a hard time getting quorums. And sitting everybody up here was tough too.
Milk will lose weight.
And so then we went through the whole process, went back, did it, amended the ordinance, through a set process, public hearings and all that stuff, amended our ordinance back down to 9. Thank goodness, because it made it a lot better. So it's just some of those times, it's cumbersome. You're working this space, Ashley does. It's cumbersome at times, but you know the state statute is what it is, and we need to follow through with that. So, and some of the things I touched base on there, you know, we have to look at why the statute was put in place. Years ago, it was initially put in the 1970s. Of course, it was updated in 2018. They made some changes to it. And it looks at what was the state looking at, the legislators looking at when they did this, right? So there was a feeling and there was proof around the state that there was suffering on tax revenue and profit deterioration and things like that. So one of the main goals was to eliminate the value deterioration and property deterioration and things like that. The goal was to turn around and somehow capture other revenue directly for economic growth of the state and through its local units of government. So that's one thing we just have to keep in mind as we're going through and doing all these things. You guys do a ton of things. The infrastructure, the northeast lot last year was improvement. The infrastructure improvements on M24 in that project was a lot of improvements. So you guys are covering a lot of bases. So we just gotta keep in track, okay, bring us back home sometimes. What else are our other goals? So one of the things in the state statute, and the main one, when it says the legislature finds all the following, then they list items A through H there. One of the ones that sticks out to me is the tax increment financing is a government finance program that contributes to economic growth and developed by dedicating a portion of the increase of the tax base resulting from economic growth in facilities, structures, or improvements within the developed area, thereby facilitating economic growth and development. And I don't think I've been to maybe one of your committee meetings. Economic vitality, I assume that's part of the economic vitality is maybe those type of things, infrastructure improvements of parking lots, Washington Square, those kind of things, where promotions is obviously a different thing. So by keeping the idea of infrastructure and development, that's one of the main reasons that the DDA statute was put in place. And they talk about the reasons for those, and I mentioned in my memo the stage. It's just a tool used by cities, villages, and townships to capture this money and go to all these other places around and focus it on this district for specific uses. So that's what we want to kind of keep in mind. It strengthens the tax base on which local units of government rely, and that government programs to eliminate property values and value deterioration benefits local units of governments and are for the use of local units of government. So it's something that, it was actually the Oxford Development Authority initially before it was changed to the Downtown Development Authority years ago. I think we had to go back to a tip thing. How many years ago we found when they did name change, and that was a stumbling block for a while. Try to find that. So they're all these provisions are enacted to provide a means for local units of governments to eliminate property value deterioration and to promote economic growth in the communities served by those local units of government. So that's kind of what we have to remember sometimes. I don't know if I said on DDA back in mid-2000, early 2000, right when the Main Street program first came around. And part of the problem they were seeing is you have these 7-member, 9-member boards, whatever, and the same 7, 8, 9 members doing all the work. So they thought, let's broaden this out. How do we get more people involved? By creating those 4 entities, those 4 community committees and stuff, as a way to get more buy-in from just volunteers perhaps, or more local businesses, their employees and things like that. So that really expounded, I think, the reach and things they do. So that was good. But it still doesn't take away from the initial main reason for it being here is for economic development through facilities and structure and things like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch base. Like I said, every now and then I see something, question about the bylaws or question about appointments or a question about memberships and stuff like that. So refocusing, I think, and reviewing these from time to time sometimes refreshes our memory. And keep it going. So I know it came up and we when we were doing our budget workshops in April, we do our budget workshops, and I think Kelsey may have mentioned to you guys, we post them as their public meetings because the whole council's planning on being there at least. We only had 4 members on ours each time. They're a public meeting, we hold them and we sit around the table, not a formal meeting where we're doing, making policy or adapting ordinances and things. We sit down and we just kind of go through the line by line, talk about goals and what we're going to do, what we're going to do with some money, how we're going to pay for this. And it's always good. We've had a few people attend them here and there and watch the whole 2-hour process. And then we come back 2 weeks, 3 weeks later and do it again. And then by the time we get to adopting our budget, we really have it boiled down good to where we're at and where we're going. And I think there was a mention of Kelsey, one of her points is perhaps you guys could do yours that way. I think it should be just one committee working on it. It should be all group. And for those who are newer to it, it's a learning process too, right? And you spread that knowledge out to everyone else too, as to who and why and how you do these things. So just keep that in mind. And then, according to statute, I can't remember what section it is, I got it highlighted this year. The council approves the budget before you adopt the budget. So again, timing sometimes, we get caught up and it's like all of a sudden it's gone. By charter, we have to have ours adopted in May. It says the first meeting in May because they used to have 2 meetings over. We do that our first meeting in May now. So we have our budget workshops sometimes starting in March. And perhaps that is something that by starting early, we can coordinate much together better. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. I sent the memo out and I thought, well, at least I wanted to provide the statute along with you, so I emailed everybody a link to it. Again, and then it speaks to the bylaw question as well, is in there. Again, and if we make changes to the bylaws and they're simple, we can just do them at council without public hearings and changing the ordinances and all that stuff. So.
Okay, thank you. Great.
I have some questions then.
No question.
Rod?
You're not going anywhere. It's a short drive. Grace first.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate the refresher because I also work with folks who are appointed to positions on a daily basis who, it's a volunteer position. I think just recognizing that not everyone who comes into this space has a background in municipal government or how that works. So it's definitely very helpful. I mean, I think doing a refresher like this maybe annually would be good, even having like professional development day or training day once annually for the board where there's a lot of excellent training through the Michigan Planners Association. They do a bunch of workshops and things on zoning and everything that has to do with code and the ordinances and all that kind of stuff for elected and appointed officials. They will come to you to do that kind of workshop. MSU Extension also has their Leadership Academy for elected and appointed officials, and that's also something where we could potentially send board members to or have them come to us for workshop day. Again, the Michigan Municipal League is always there. The village is a member of the league, which means that the DDA also is. So we have access to all of the resources, their membership help desk. You can call any of the experts there to help walk you through anything or attend any of the events and trainings as well. But that might be helpful for board members who are, trying to step into this space and learn everything from Open Meetings Act to, Robert's rules and how you run a meeting and all this kind of stuff that can be a little overwhelming at first.
Great.
So on that comment on Robert, they have a person who would come in and do something on Robert Rules of Order?
Yeah, actually, I believe that specifically the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys, MAMA, is their organization. They're an affiliate group.
So my
of-
question would be, is if somebody would come in and do this?
Yes, yeah, they will send someone. I think the Legal Defense Fund also sometimes does.
I mean, I have a
that. They
couple
will
of friends of
come
mine from the
into
AUW that have done this. I didn't know if there's another entity
Yeah,
besides them.
they do a whole kind of workshop that they will come and do that does everything on like how to run a meeting, Open Meetings Act, the Robert's Rule of Order, all that kind of stuff. It's like an intro to.
Village Legal
how to run a
Counsel,
meeting.
Robert Davis, has done
Does
that in
it.
the past, like with the planning commission. Zoning Board of Appeals is a very important position. Luckily, we don't have a lot of variances because that's like a quasi judicial situation where beyond them it's circuit court. And they do it so infrequently, and sometimes they need some refreshers, especially if you get new people. So similarly, open meetings is for everybody, DDA, planning, us, you guys. So he can do something like that as well. He's off that past as well.
So the other thing is, since you're doing a tutorial on the state code, et cetera, what's the guidelines on the composition of the DDA board of our 9 members?
The majority has to have interest in the downtown, and they describe that interest as a building owner. And even talks about an employee or contact or contract person of a business in the district.
So 5 of the 4 must have
Majority
an
have an
interest.
interest, yes, and then they define what that interest, they drill down a little bit on what that interest is.
Is that in the, what we have in front of us, or that's something separate? Or do you have to know
Well,
at
I
the top
have
of
a
your
copy
head?
of it, the 19 pages here, but that's what I emailed you, the link to, this is on our website.
And that delineates those
Yeah.
defined interests?
Yeah, the majority of them have to have an interest, and then it says such as employee or building, owner, employee, things like that.
Anybody else? Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Now moving on to item 9C. I'll turn this over to Grace.
Yeah, so regretfully, I have a resignation letter for all of you today. I've had some unforeseen events happening in my personal life recently. My family lost someone about a week and a half ago, and just a lot of other things that have been happening all at once. So I have been and will continue to be out of state for quite a while, and then I already had some planned travel to Norway to visit my partner's family later in the fall, so it looks like I just won't be around much for several months, and definitely would like to stay involved and hopefully not leaving for good, but I need to step back for a little bit right now, and I wish that I had the time and the commitment that is needed for this board right now, and I know that you guys deserve to have someone who is going to be fully committed to this. So that's what I have.
A motion to accept.
I'll move to accept the resignation of Grace Carey with regrets.
I'll second that.
Then moved and seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same thing?
Quick question, Grace, are you going to be on the committee, EV? You wanna
Not
take-
for a while. I'll be able to join again in a few months.
No items were removed from the consent agenda. Board member comments, starting with Bryce.
We're sorry to see you go, Grace, but totally understand. Thank you for the refresher. For someone like me, it's necessary. And thank you for all your hard work, Kelly, and Cam on the strategic planning. I'm looking forward to the meeting on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Your turn.
This is like giving a speech at an awards ceremony. But yeah, as always, thank you to all of my fellow board members. You do really, really good work here in the community, and I've really enjoyed my experience working with all of you and with Kelly and Kimberly. You guys are doing fantastic work as well, and I will not be gone forever, so please reach out to me. I'm happy to still participate, and I hope I see you all around.
Oh, we will. We'll be catching up. We know where she lives. We'll send a pigeon.
It sounds like a threat.
Marie?
Yeah, sorry to see you go, Grace. We're gonna miss you, but wish you the best. And I attended the market, and I thought it was fabulous. I was kind of blown away at the number of vendors that we had there, and the size, and the crowd, and everything. So, good job to the team that put that together. And yeah, just looking forward to the rest of the summer and what we have coming up. So, thank you.
Rod?
Just the same thing, Grace. I'm gonna miss you. Seriously. I won't say anything else. That summarizes it. And then going back to what I said earlier, Kimberly, appreciate what you've done over there with the, and Kelly too, the concerts and the vendors market. And listen, what you're saying about the October event that we've got going on. I always think about how that's improved since Kelly's done so many good things with that. Even the sign up, selling tickets. Because I always say how I remember for years I would volunteer there, I'd freeze my hands off, just my fingers would be brittle, and then you can do ticket sales online, which sounds small, but it's huge, you know, so those little things. I think the DDA has been the best it's ever been in my experience. And a lot of it, you know, comes with the thing that you two guys are up to, so, and the board, obviously. So that's it.
Catherine?
Yes, Grace will miss you, of course. And yeah, thanks everyone for all your hard work. I think downtown looks great.
Well, let me get my list out. No, it's been great. I'm just getting my feet wet and figuring this all out, but I mean, I've been here for many, many years, and in just the last maybe 4 or 5 years, it's really, Oxford has just really grown and attracting the public, so it's working. You're doing a great job.
Yep.
Thanks for having me on the board.
Grace, we're gonna miss you.
Yes.
Definitely, we will find you as soon as you come back. But in the meantime, good luck to you and your family, and getting things taken care of and everything. We'll really miss you. Kelly and Kimberly, the market, phenomenal. I mean, everybody in town is raving about it, talking about it, so you guys can take kudos to yourselves for it. It's all your work and definitely shows. Thanks, Joe, for tonight. We all need a reminder and refresher and so on and so forth. And you brought back dreadful memories of when we did the entire process before, of the up to 13, down to 9, up to 13. And sit here and counting, and there's 2 of us here sitting at the board, you know, everybody to show up for quorum. So definitely was, you know, it's been a long time going through it and everything, a lot of steps. So thank you very much for that. And with that, is there any other extended public comment? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting for this evening.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same thing.
So, this whole thing came about.
Now it's official.
Real.